Today isn't just another day in football. The entire world is on its feet, waiting for a once-in-a-lifetime moment. The moment Lionel Messi plays his final game for Argentina. Millions are watching, tears are falling, chants echo everywhere. It feels as if the planet itself is holding its breath to honor the farewell of a legend. But then comes the strange, almost shocking question. What if Mufasa, the great king of the savannah, had his own farewell? Would that moment have turned into something just as legendary as Messi's goodbye? Would Mufasa have received the farewell he truly deserved? Or was he denied that chance by fate? At first, comparing a Disney lion to a human footballer sounds crazy. But when you look deeper, the connection is stronger than you think. Messi was never just a player, just as Mufasa was never just a king. Both embodied leadership, sacrifice, and loyalty. Both loved their people, their fans, until the very end. And that leads us to the big theory. If Mufasa hadn't fallen into that dark gorge, betrayed by Scar, then one day he too would have stood before the kingdom, saying his final goodbye in a moment just as powerful as Messi's farewell. But before we dive into that bold idea, we need to ask, what makes a farewell legendary? Why has Messi's goodbye today become a global event? And why does Mufasa's absence still leave a hole no one else could fill? The answer lies somewhere between emotion, leadership, and symbolism. When we go back to The Lion King, we see Mufasa standing tall on Pride Rock, gazing over his kingdom with dignity. That moment wasn't just about power. It was about a bond between a leader and his people. The same bond we see when Messi steps onto the field, surrounded by fans who see him as more than an athlete. It's the unspoken connection between a leader and those who follow him. Mufasa wasn't king only by birth. He ruled through love, justice, and strength that was never abused. Even when he taught Simba about the circle of life, it wasn't just a lesson. It was a seed of responsibility and compassion. And that's where the theory sharpens. If Mufasa had lived, he would have remained a teacher and protector until his last breath, leaving the world in a farewell worthy of his greatness. Just like Messi, choosing to step away in a moment filled with honor and respect that money can't buy. But are we sure? Was Mufasa truly the kind of leader who would be celebrated with a legendary farewell? Think about it. In the film, every creature feared and respected him, not out of terror, but out of reverence. Even the hyenas trembled at the mere thought of him. That respect was earned, not forced. And isn't that exactly what we see in Messi's fans today? Fear of losing him, respect for all he gave, and unconditional love that words can't capture. This is where the parallel becomes clear. A farewell isn't just a goodbye. It's the culmination of a lifetime of devotion. Messi gave football what no one else could. Mufasa gave his kingdom the same. Both became symbols. And when a symbol leaves, it never leaves alone. It carries the hearts of millions with it. But here's the twist. In The Lion King, Mufasa never got that chance. His death was sudden, tragic, soaked in betrayal. Messi, despite the struggles and setbacks, earned the right to stand before his people and say, "Thank you." So the question is, what if Mufasa had the same chance? How would he have stood? How would Simba have felt? And how would the kingdom have changed? History is often defined by its final moments. The way we leave leaves a deeper mark than any victory. Messi will be remembered not only for his brilliance, but for the way he said goodbye. Mufasa, despite his greatness, remains incomplete, because we never saw his farewell. Would the kingdom itself have changed if it had witnessed it? Would Simba's path have been different? The theory says yes. If Mufasa had lived to say goodbye, the story would have unfolded in a very different way. Scar would never have ruled. Simba would never have been lost in exile. Because a leader's farewell isn't just words. It's a legacy, a message, an eternal mark. But do we have proof? Clues hidden in the film that suggest Mufasa deserved a farewell worthy of legends? Absolutely. From his teachings to Simba, to the way he treated every creature, to the heartbreaking moment of his fall, all of it points to the same truth. That he was a king whose departure should have been remembered forever. And that brings us to a deeper question. Do we crave these moments of farewell because we can't accept sudden loss? Do our feelings for Messi and Mufasa reflect a human need to see our heroes leave with dignity rather than vanish in silence? Maybe that's where the power of this theory lies. It's not just a comparison, it's a reflection of something universal. Is the worth of a hero measured by what they gave or by how they left? When we look at the Lion King with different eyes, we realize Mufasa was never just another character. He was the foundation of something bigger than the kingdom itself. Every scene he appeared in, every word he spoke, carried hidden seeds of a farewell that never happened. And if we piece those seeds together, it almost feels like Disney left us a trail of clues about a goodbye we never got to see. The first clue comes right at the beginning: Simba's presentation on Pride Rock. Animals from every corner of the land gather, bowing to a cub who hasn't even opened his eyes. But towering above them all is Mufasa. That moment wasn't only about celebrating the birth of an heir, it was a portrait of a king whose people followed him not just because of his crown, but because he symbolized life itself. So here's the question. If the kingdom gathered like that for a newborn, what would it have looked like if the moment was for Mufasa's farewell? Wouldn't the crowd have been even greater? The tears even deeper? The silence even heavier? The second clue comes with the sunrise, when Mufasa tells Simba that a true king doesn't simply rule over what the light touches. He protects the balance. These aren't just a father's words to his son. They sound more like a king's final message, almost a farewell speech. Was Mufasa planting the idea of legacy from the start? And doesn't that feel like the kind of words leaders share in their final moments? The kind that echo long after they're gone? Then we reach the third clue: Mufasa's confrontation with the hyenas. He charges into the Shadowlands, not fearing danger, to save his son. After overpowering them, he doesn't brag, doesn't punish, he simply warns them and leaves. That shows us his power was never about domination, it was about protection. Doesn't that remind you of Messi, facing endless pressure, crushing defeats, and yet rising again, not through arrogance, but with calm and dignity? If that was how Mufasa treated his enemies, doesn't it make sense that his farewell would have been filled with honor and peace, not betrayal and blood? The fourth clue is in the great betrayal. When Mufasa falls into the gorge, notice what's missing. The animals, the kingdom itself, weren't there. His death wasn't public. It was private, witnessed only by Scar and Simba. Could that absence be intentional? Was Disney showing us that Mufasa's farewell was left incomplete? And isn't that what makes his death feel so painfully tragic? Imagine if the entire kingdom had been there to witness his final moment. Wouldn't the story have taken a completely different turn? And then comes the fifth, and perhaps most powerful clue: the sky itself. The clouds form Mufasa's face, and his deep voice thunders down to Simba. Remember who you are. This is the postponed farewell. Mufasa didn't get to say goodbye in life, so his goodbye came from the heavens. Was that scene meant to be a symbolic substitute for the farewell he never had on Earth? And if so, was it Disney's way of hinting that Mufasa's true farewell will always remain unfinished? All of these clues circle back to one haunting question. Why didn't the film give us a real farewell for Mufasa? Was it meant to keep his image incomplete, so he could live on as something larger than any single scene? Or was it the invitation to imagine a different version of the story? A moment where Mufasa stood tall before the entire kingdom, in a farewell just as epic as Messi's today? Look even closer, and you'll notice one more hidden clue. At the very end, when Simba takes the throne, he doesn't stand alone. The animals roar, bow, and cheer for him. Isn't that, in a way, a reflection of the farewell Mufasa should have had? Almost as if the story gave Simba the moment his father was denied. But here's the mystery. Was Simba truly ready to carry that weight? Or did the absence of his father's farewell leave an emptiness inside him that never went away? Every single clue doesn't close the case. It opens a new question. Maybe the truth is that we, the audience, need that missing scene to complete the story in our own minds. Or maybe the story was deliberately left unfinished, leaving us to imagine for ourselves the farewell of a king who never got to say goodbye. Now, imagine with me a scene no one ever saw. A moment that never made it into the movie, but could have changed everything. Picture this. Mufasa doesn't fall into the gorge. Scar's betrayal fails at the very last second. Instead, the entire kingdom gathers on a bright morning. Birds filling the sky, elephants and giraffes lined up in rows, lions circling Pride Rock. Everyone comes not for a fight, but to witness something greater, the farewell of a king. Mufasa stands tall, his deep voice echoing across the silence. He tells them the circle of life never ends, but his time has come to pass the legacy to Simba. Tears glisten, the earth itself seems to tremble, as if nature is part of this sacred moment. Isn't this the scene we were missing? Doesn't it feel like today's stadium, packed with thousands saying goodbye to Messi, chanting his name, crying because the farewell finally came? But here's the twist. What if Scar doesn't stay silent? What if right in the middle of this farewell he dares to speak, planting seeds of doubt, twisting emotions? Suddenly, what began as a solemn goodbye turns into a hidden battle between two brothers. Mufasa speaks of legacy. Scar hints of conspiracy. And just like that, the farewell transforms into a test of loyalty. Yet Mufasa, with his wisdom, doesn't answer anger with anger. He turns to Simba in front of everyone and tells him, leadership is not a privilege, but a burden. A true king serves his people before himself. At that moment, the farewell becomes a rebirth. Simba is no longer just a son. He is the heir, crowned not in silence but before the eyes of the kingdom. Now imagine what that would mean for Simba. In the original story, he runs, lost in guilt. But in this version, he carries his father's words like a shield. No confusion, no years of hiding, just clarity, strength. Would the kingdom have been stronger, or would Scar have found another way to strike? And here's where things get even stranger. What if Mufasa chose to leave willingly, not by death, but by stepping down? Like leaders who know when their time is over. Imagine him saying, I've given you my best. Now it's Simba's turn. That would have changed everything. Scar would no longer be a shadowy traitor, but an open challenger. The story would shift from tragedy to politics, from family betrayal to a fight for legitimacy. But we always come back to the same question. Do we imagine this farewell simply because we can't bear to let a king vanish without one? Maybe. Or maybe Messi's farewell today reminds us just how much that final moment matters. History will record that Messi left in glory. History also records that Mufasa left in betrayal. One ending completes the circle, the other leaves it forever open. And maybe that's why this theory is so powerful. It doesn't give us one answer. It opens 1,000 possibilities. Perhaps Mufasa would have stood tall to applause. Perhaps Scar would have stolen the stage even in that moment. Or perhaps none of it would have happened, because legends don't always need a farewell. They live on, whether we see their goodbye or not. But watching Messi say goodbye today, we can't help but wonder, if Mufasa could return for just one day, would he stand on Pride Rock and thank his people with words? Or would he simply look into their eyes in silence and let them cry as he fades away? And so we end with a question for you. If Mufasa had been given his farewell, would the Lion King have been less tragic or less unforgettable? Share your thoughts. Because the truth is, every farewell, whether Messi on the field or Mufasa in his kingdom, leaves a mark that never fades. And sometimes, it changes the world.